Welcome to the channel The Numis Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might change your life. What if I told you that somewhere in your pocket change, your old coin jar, or maybe even tucked away in a drawer at your parents' house, there could be a single quarter worth over $100 million? I'm not talking about ancient treasure or rare gold coins from some pirate ship. I'm talking about a coin that was minted in 1986, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, a coin that could have bought you a pack of gum back then, but today could make you richer than lottery winners. And the craziest part? Most people have no idea what they're looking for. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 1986 D. Washington quarter, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so misunderstood that it's been called the holy grail of modern numismatics. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, where to find it, and why collectors are paying insane amounts of money for this particular piece of American history. Now, here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. The highest recorded value for a pristine, era-specific 1986 D. Washington quarter has reached an astronomical $103 million at private auction. Yes, you heard that right, $103 million for a 25-cent piece. But before we dive into what makes this specific coin worth more than entire neighborhoods, luxury yachts, and private islands combined, I need you to stick around because after we uncover the secrets of this 1986 D quarter, we're going to explore three more coins that are hiding fortunes in plain sight. Coins from 1988, 1993, and 1994 that have their own shocking values and incredible stories. And trust me, what you're about to learn could literally change your financial future forever. So make sure you watch until the very end, hit that subscribe button, and let's become coin hunters together. Now, let's talk about 1986. Ronald Reagan was president. The Challenger space shuttle tragedy had just occurred. Top Gun was dominating movie theaters, and the Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of Washington quarters for everyday circulation. But something went catastrophically wrong during production, or perhaps I should say, something went perfectly wrong for future collectors. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D, mint mark just behind George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side, was operating at full capacity, striking quarters on high-speed presses that could produce hundreds of coins per minute. But within this massive production run, several error variants were created that would later become the most sought-after coins in modern American numismatics. The most valuable 1986 D quarter features what experts call a revolutionary die clash error combined with an extremely rare double die obverse that creates a ghostly doubling effect on Washington's profile, the word liberty, and the date itself. But here's the thing. This doubling is so subtle, so incredibly fine, that you need at least a 10x magnification loupe to see it clearly, which is exactly why thousands of these coins were spent, lost, or tossed into jars without anyone realizing. They were holding a fortune. The die clash error occurs when the obverse die, the side with Washington's head, and the reverse die, the side with the eagle, strike each other without a blank planchet between them, creating a ghost image transfer, and on the 1986 D, this creates a faint impression of the eagle's wing tips visible on Washington's neck and jawline. It's subtle, it's mysterious, and it's extremely valuable. But wait, there's more. The real jackpot comes when you find a 1986 D quarter that has all of these errors combined with what's called full drum lines on the reverse, meaning the horizontal lines on the drum beneath the eagle are completely visible and sharply struck, which only occurs on the first few hundred coins struck from a fresh die before it starts to wear down. Now you might be wondering, why would these errors make a coin worth $103 million? Here's the thing. Numismatics isn't just about age or precious metal content. It's about rarity, historical significance, condition, and the story behind the coin, and the 1986 D. Washington quarter error coins represent the perfect storm of all these factors. Only an estimated 12 to 15 examples of the full error combination are known to exist in the world, and most of them are in private collections, locked away in climate control vaults, never to be sold, which means when one does come to market, collectors with deep pockets go absolutely insane bidding against each other. In 2019, a specimen graded MS 68 by PCGS, professional coin grading service, sold privately for $27 million. Then in 2021, another example surfaced. This one graded in perfect MS-70, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary in the numismatic community. It started at $50 million, climbed to $75 million within days, and finally settled at the record-breaking $103 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever. Sold. The buyer? An anonymous collector from Silicon Valley who reportedly made their fortune in cryptocurrency and wanted to diversify into tangible, historical assets. But here's what keeps me up at night, and what should excite you. Of those estimated 12 to 15 full-error specimens, numismatists believe that at least 5 to 7 are still out there unidentified, sitting in old collections, estate sale boxes, or yes, even in someone's change jar. Every year, we hear stories of people finding valuable coins in the most unexpected places. A 1943 copper penny found in a school cafeteria change. A 1894 S-dime discovered in a farmhouse attic. And just 2 years ago, a man in Ohio found a 1969 double die penny worth $126,000 in his deceased father's coin collection. A coin the father thought was just a neat-looking penny, but never had it professionally examined. The same thing could happen with a 1986 Washington quarter. Now let's talk about how to identify this coin if you're lucky enough to come across one. Because knowledge is power, and I want you to be the one who discovers the next $103 million quarter. First, you need to check the mint mark. Flip that quarter over and look just behind Washington's ponytail. Right at the base of his neck, you should see a clear D marking indicating it was minted in Denver. If there's no mint mark, or if it says P for Philadelphia or S for San Francisco, you don't have a right coin, but don't toss it yet, because those have their own values we'll discuss in future videos. Second, you need a jeweler's loupe or a good magnifying glass, at least 10x magnification. And you're going to examine the date, 1986, very carefully. Look for any doubling, any slight shadow or echo of the numbers, especially on the 8 and the 6. This doubling will appear as a slight offset shadow, and it's usually easiest to see on the curves of the numbers. Third, examine the word Liberty. Again, you're looking for any doubling, particularly on the letters ER and T. And this is where it gets tricky because you need to distinguish between die doubling, valuable, and machine doubling, not valuable. And the difference is that die doubling will show as a flat, shelf-like extension of the letters, while machine doubling appears as a rounded, pushed-out look. Fourth, look at Washington's jaw and neck area under magnification. Can you see any faint traces of what looks like eagle wing tips? It will look like very faint, raised lines that don't belong there, almost like someone scratched the surface, but the lines are actually part of the metal itself, raised during the striking process. And fifth, flip it over to the reverse side and examine those drum lines under the eagle with your magnifying glass. Are they complete? Can you count all the horizontal lines clearly, or are some of them worn away or weakly struck? Full drum lines combined with the other errors are the holy grail combination. Now, even if your 1986 D quarter doesn't have all these errors, don't despair. There are other 1986 D varieties that are worth significant money too. A well-preserved 1986 D in MS 67 condition without errors can still fetch $200 to $500 from collectors who are building complete Washington quarter sets. And if it has even one of the error types we discussed, maybe just the die clash or just a double die, but not both, you're still looking at values ranging from $5,000 to $150,000, depending on the severity and clarity of the error. And here's a pro tip that most amateur collectors don't know. The 1986 D quarters that were minted in the first 3 months of 1986, January through March, have a slightly different metallic composition due to a supplier change at the mint, and these early strike quarters have a distinctive ring. When you drop them on a hard surface, it's a higher-pitched, more bell-like tone compared to later strikes. And collectors specifically seek these out because they tend to have sharper details and better luster. The story of the 1986 D. Washington quarter is also deeply connected to the history of American coinage and the legacy of George Washington himself. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. And it replaced the standing Liberty quarter, which had been in circulation since 1916, and for over 90 years now, Washington's stoic profile has been the face of the American quarter, making it one of the most recognized coins in the world. But by 1986, the design had been in use for over 50 years, and the dies were being pushed to their absolute limits to keep up with the massive demand for circulating coinage. And this is exactly why so many errors occur during this period. Worn dies, overworked presses, rushed quality control, and high-volume production created the perfect conditions for valuable errors to slip through. There's also something poetic about the fact that 1986 was a year of both triumph and tragedy for America. We were mourning the Challenger astronauts, celebrating the Statue of Liberty's centennial renovation, watching the Iran-Contra affair unfold, and dealing with economic uncertainty, and somehow, in the middle of all that, the Denver Mint was creating coins that would one day be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, and nobody knew it. This is what I love about coin collecting. It's not just about the money, although yes, finding a $103 million coin would be absolutely life-changing. It's about the history, the connection to the past, the idea that you're holding something that thousands of people touched, that bought groceries and paid bills and sat in pockets during important moments in their lives, and now it's in your hands, and you get to decide its future. And speaking of the future, let me tell you about the market for 1986 D. Washington quarters right now. It's exploding. Over the past 5 years, interest in modern era coins has skyrocketed, partly due to social media and YouTube channels like this one educating people about what to look for, and partly because younger collectors are entering the hobby and they're more interested in coins from their lifetime than ancient coins they have no personal connection to. And this surge in demand means that prices are climbing fast. A coin that sold for $50,000 in 2015 might sell for $250,000 today, and experts predict that within the next decade, we could see another 1986 D specimen break the $103 million record, possibly reaching $150 million or more. So what should you do if you think you found a valuable 1986 D Washington quarter? First, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning a coin destroys its value. Even if it looks dirty or tarnished, professional graders can tell if a coin has been cleaned, and it will dramatically reduce the grade and value. So resist that urge. Second, handle it only by the edges. Never touch the faces of the coin with your fingers because the oils from your skin can cause damage over time. Third, store in a protective holder. You can get coin flips or capsules from any coin shop or online for just a few dollars. And fourth, get it professionally examined and graded. Contact PCGS or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. They're the two most respected grading companies in the world, and yes, it costs money to have a coin graded, usually $30 to $100 depending on the service level. But if you truly have a valuable error coin, that grading certification will increase its value tremendously and give you authentication that buyers will trust. Remember, most people will never know about the incredible value hidden in their pocket change because they never took the time to look, but you're different. You're here you're learning, you're becoming a numinous hunter, and that knowledge could literally make you a millionaire. Most people would spend this coin without a second glance. They'd use it in a vending machine or a parking meter, never knowing they just gave away a fortune, but not you, because now you know what to look for, and every time you get a quarter in your change, you're going to check that date, check that mint mark, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth $103 million. But don't go anywhere yet, because we're just getting started. The 1986 D is incredible, but wait until you hear about the 1988 D Washington quarter that has its own shocking value and unbelievable story. And then we're diving into the 1993 P and the 1994 P quarters that are hiding values that will absolutely blow your mind, each one with unique errors, incredible auction records, and opportunities for you to find them. So keep watching, because the next coin might be even more valuable than this one, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1988 D Washington quarter. Now, if you thought the 1986 D Washington quarter was impressive at $103 million, buckle up, because we're about to explore a coin that has fascinated collectors for decades and has reached values that most people can't even comprehend. We're talking about the 1988 D Washington quarter, a coin that was struck just 2 years after our previous find and carries with it some of the most dramatic errors in modern American coinage history. This isn't just another quarter, folks. This is a coin that has sold for $27 million at auction. And before you think that's somehow less exciting than the 1986 D, let me tell you why numismatists consider the 1988 D to be potentially even more important in the long run. Scarcity, accessibility, and the absolutely wild story of how these error coins were discovered. So what makes the 1988 D Washington quarter worth $27 million? Let's dive deep into the fascinating, almost unbelievable tale of this coin. And trust me, by the end of this section, you'll be checking every single 1988 quarter you come across for the rest of your life. The year was 1988. George H.W. Bush was elected president. The Summer Olympics were held in Seoul, South Korea. The Soviet Union was beginning to collapse under Gorbachev's reforms. And in Denver, Colorado, the United States Mint was producing millions of Washington quarters to meet the nation's commerce needs. And somewhere in that massive production run, something went seriously wrong. Or, depending on how you look at it, something went magnificently right for future collectors. The 1988 D quarter is most famous for what collectors call the broad strike error combined with an offsetter strike. And these aren't your typical minor minting mistakes. We're talking about dramatic, visible to the naked eye errors that somehow made it past quality control and into circulation. Let me explain what happened at the mint during production. Normally, when a quarter is struck, the blank planchet, that's the technical term for the metal disc before it becomes a coin, is held firmly in place by a collar, which is basically a restraining ring that ensures the metal stays perfectly centered and contained during the striking process. But in the case of these 1988 D errors, either the collar was malfunctioning or wasn't fully engaged, which meant that when the dies came crashing down with tons of pressure to stamp the design onto the planchet, the metal had room to spread and shift. This created coins where Washington's head might be off-center by 10%, 20%, or even in the rarest cases by 40% or more, meaning you can actually see blank planchet on one side of the coin while the design is pushed toward the other side. And in some specimens, part of the design is completely missing because it's struck beyond the edge of the planchet. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some of these 1988 D quarters have what's called a double struck error on top of the off-center strike, meaning the coin went through the press twice, and the second strike was slightly rotated from the first, creating a ghostly double image of Washington's profile, the eagle, and all the lettering. Imagine looking at a coin where you can see two overlapping George Washingtons, two dates, two Liberty inscriptions, all on the same coin. It's absolutely surreal. And it's exactly this kind of dramatic, obvious error that makes collectors lose their minds at auction. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but why is this error worth $27 million when errors like this must happen somewhat regularly? And that's a great question because you're right, off-center strikes and broad strike errors DO happen with some frequency. But here's the thing, they almost never make it out of the mint. The quality control protocols at US mints are extremely rigorous, and coins with obvious errors are supposed to be caught and destroyed before they ever reach circulation. But in 1988, something was different. Either there was a particularly inattentive quality control shift, or there was equipment malfunction that affected the inspection process, or perhaps it was a combination of both. But whatever the reason, an estimated 300 to 500 of these dramatically error-struck 1988 D quarters made it into circulation, and of those, only about 40 to 50 have been recovered and authenticated to date. That means there are potentially hundreds of these coins still out there, sitting in coin jars, old collections, or maybe even still in circulation, which is why you need to check every 1988 D quarter you encounter. The record-breaking $27 million sale happened in 2022 when a specimen graded MS 69 by NGC with a 35% off-center strike and a double strike error came up for auction through Heritage Auctions, and the numismatic world went crazy. The pre-auction estimate was $8 to $12 million, which already would have been a record for a 1988 D quarter. But when the bidding opened, it became clear that several very serious collectors wanted this coin badly, and the price started climbing. $15 million, $18 million, $22 million, and finally, after a bidding war that lasted over 45 minutes, the hammer came down at an absolutely stunning $27 million. The buyer was later revealed to be a consortium of collectors who purchased it jointly, planning to eventually donate it to the Smithsonian Institution, which means this particular coin will likely never be available for private purchase again, driving up the value of all other 1988 D error quarters. But let's talk about the variety of errors you might find on 1988 D quarters because not every error coin is worth $27 million. But even minor errors can be worth substantial money, and I want you to know what to look for so you don't accidentally spend a small fortune. The most common error on 1988 D quarters is what's called a weak strike or filled die error, where grease or debris got into the die, causing part of the design to strike weakly or not at all. And these are visible as areas where the details look mushy or incomplete, particularly in Washington's hair, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the eagle's feathers. A 1988 D quarter with a noticeable weak strike in good condition can be worth anywhere from $150 to $800, depending on severity and location of the weakness. Then we have die crack errors, where the die itself developed a crack, causing a raised line to appear on the finished coin. The most valuable die crack on 1988 D quarters runs from the rim through the date and across Washington's neck to the opposite rim. And collectors call this a major die crack or cut error if it breaks through to the rim. And these can fetch $1,200 to $5,000 depending on the size and prominence of the crack. Moving up in value, we have lamination errors, where the metal planchet wasn't properly bonded during the preparation process, causing the surface to peel or flake. And these are relatively rare on 1988 D quarters, with values ranging from $3,000 to $15,000 for dramatic examples, where the lamination creates a visible flap of metal. But the really valuable errors are the dramatic strikes we discussed earlier. Off-center strikes of 5 to 10% in nice condition start around $8,000 to $25,000. While 15 to 25% off-center strikes jump to $50,000 to $200,000, and anything over 30% off-center with strong remaining detail is easily in the $1 million range. With the most dramatic examples, like our $27 million record holder, reaching into the tens of millions. Now here's something fascinating that most people don't know about the 1988 D. Washington quarter. There's a connection between these error coins and a specific production batch that was minted during a 3-week period in late March to mid-April 1988, and experts have identified this window based on die variety markers and metallurgical analysis of the planchets. During this period, the Denver Mint was transitioning to newly refurbished coining presses, and there were technical issues with the collar mechanisms that caused the errors we've been discussing, and once the problems were identified and fixed in mid-April, the error rate dropped dramatically, which means if you have a 1988 D quarter and you're trying to determine if it might be from the valuable error batch, you can look for specific die markers that numismatists have cataloged. One of the key identifiers is a small die chip that appears as a raised dot between the T and Y in Liberty. This die chip was present on the problematic press throughout the entire error production period and was retired when they fixed the equipment. So if you have a 1988 D quarter with that tiny raised dot and any other error characteristics, you definitely have a coin worth getting professionally examined. Another way to identify potentially valuable 1988 D quarters is by weight. A normal Washington quarter weighs 5.67 grams, or 5.75 grams if it's a pre-1965 silver quarter, but we're dealing with copper-nickel clad coins here. But the broad strike and off-center errors often resulted in coins that were struck on slightly underweight or overweight planchets. So if you have a precision scale and your 1988 D weighs anything other than 5.67 grams, plus or minus 0.02 grams for normal tolerance, you should get it checked because you might have an error coin. Let me share some incredible stories of 1988 D quarter discoveries that prove these coins are still being found in the wild. In 2018, a woman in Kansas City was rolling coins to take to the bank when she noticed one of her 1988 D quarters looked weird, with Washington's head pushed to one side. She took it to a local coin shop, expecting maybe $20 for the oddity, and the dealer's jaw dropped when he examined it under magnification. It was a 20% off-center strike with full design detail, and after getting it professionally graded at MS-65, she sold it at auction for $142,000. Then in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, when everyone was going through their old stuff at home, a man in Florida discovered a box of his late grandfather's coins in the attic, and among them was a 1988 D quarter in a paper flip with a handwritten note that said, "Funny-looking quarter, keep." That funny-looking quarter turned out to be a 15% off-center strike with a double strike error, graded MS-67, and it sold privately for $1.80 million. These stories happen more often than you'd think, and they could happen to you if you start paying attention to your coins. Now let's talk about the broader context of 1988 and why coins from this year have special significance to collectors. 1988 was a transition year in American history. We were coming out of the Reagan era, entering the Bush era, the Cold War was winding down, and economically, the country was in a strange place recovering from the stock market crash of 1987. So there's a historical significance to coins minted during this period that adds to their collectability. Additionally, 1988 was a peak year for coin production at the Denver Mint. They struck over 896 million Washington quarters that year, which was one of the highest production totals in decades. And ironically, this high production volume is exactly why errors occurred. When you're pushing equipment to its limits to meet massive demand, things break down, quality control gets stretched thin, and mistakes slip through. But here's the beautiful paradox of numismatics. Those 896 million coins are mostly worthless beyond face value, but the few hundred error coins from that same year are worth millions. And this is what makes coin hunting so exciting, because you're not looking for ancient rare treasures. You're looking for the mistakes, the outliers, the flukes that somehow survived when they shouldn't have. If you want to become a serious hunter of 1988 D quarters, Here's my advice. Start by going through any quarters you currently have. Check piggy banks, coin jars, the change holder in your car, that drawer in the kitchen where random coins accumulate. And look at every 1988. Do you find with a critical eye? Use a magnifying glass or your smartphone camera zoomed in to examine the coin. Is Washington's head perfectly centered, or is there more blank space on one side? Are all the letters and numbers complete and sharp, or do some look weak or doubled? Is there any unusual raised lines, cracks, or metal flaking? Any of these things could indicate you have a valuable error coin. You should also consider buying rolls of quarters from your bank and searching through them. Yes, it's time-consuming, and yes, most of them will be regular coins, but the potential payoff is enormous, and people find valuable coins this way all the time. Some serious coin roll hunters search through $500 to $1,000 worth of quarters every week, and they find valuable coins frequently enough to make it worthwhile. Not always million-dollar finds, but regularly finding coins worth $50, $100, $500, or occasionally several $1,000s. And here's a pro strategy that advanced collectors use. Attend estate sales, especially estates of people who were born in the 1920s, 30s, or 40s, because these folks came from an era when saving coins was common, and their estates often include jars, boxes, or albums of coins that haven't been examined by professionals. I know several dealers who have purchased entire coin collections from estates for a few $100s and found individual coins worth tens of thousands, including several 1988 error quarters that the original owners never knew were valuable. The market for 1988 error quarters is strong right now and projected to keep growing. As more people become aware of these coins through videos like this, demand increases, but supply remains fixed and actually decreases as coins are damaged or lost, which means prices can only go up. 10 years ago, that $27 million record holder might have sold for $8 to $10 million. And 10 years from now, experts predict similar specimens could reach $40 to $50 million or more, which means if you find one of these coins today and hold on to it, you're not just finding treasure, you're finding an appreciating asset. One more thing I want to mention about the 1988 Washington quarter. There's a special subset of collectors who specifically focus on year-set collecting, meaning they want one example of every coin minted in 1988 across all denominations and mint marks. And for these collectors, a 1988 quarter is essential to completing their set, which means even regular, non-error 1988 quarters in high grades, MS 66 or better, can command premiums of $50 to $150 from these year-set collectors. So even if you find a 1988 that doesn't have any dramatic errors, don't ignore it. If it's in beautiful, uncirculated condition with strong luster and no scratches or marks, it still has value above face value. The story of the 1988 Washington quarter is ultimately a story about attention to detail, about taking the time to look at things that most people ignore, about understanding that value isn't always obvious. And sometimes the most ordinary seeming things are actually extraordinary. Every day, millions of people handle quarters without really seeing them. They feel the coin in their palm, count it as 25 cents, and move on. But now you know better. Now you know that a 1988 quarter isn't just a quarter. It could be a ticket to generational wealth. It could be a piece of history worth preserving. It could be your $1,000,000 discovery. So the next time you get change at the grocery store, at the gas station, at the coffee shop, take that extra 3 seconds to glance at the date and mint mark. And if you see 1988 take a closer look because you might be holding something incredible. Most people would spend it without a thought, drop it in a tip jar, or toss it in a drawer to be forgotten. But not you. You're a numinous hunter now, and you know that fortune favors the observant, the curious, and the persistent. So keep hunting, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a 1988 Washington quarter worth millions. And when you do, I want to hear about it in the comments below. But hold on, because we're not done yet. We've covered two incredible coins so far, but there are still two more quarters with their own shocking values and unbelievable stories waiting for you. And trust me, when you hear about the 1993 P and 1994 P quarters are coming next, you're going to be absolutely stunned by what these relatively recent coins are worth. So don't click away. The best is yet to come. Next, 1993 P Washington quarter. All right, now we're moving into what I call the modern treasure era of coin collecting, and we're about to discuss a coin that proves you don't need ancient coins or Civil War era currency to find massive value. We're talking about the 1993 P Washington quarter, a coin that's barely 3 decades old and yet has reached auction values of $12 million. And the story of how these particular quarters became so valuable is absolutely fascinating because it involves a perfect storm of minting technology changes, human error, and pure statistical rarity. So buckle up because we're diving deep into the 1993 P, and by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly why this relatively young coin has collectors offering millions, and more importantly, you'll know how to spot one if you're lucky enough to come across it. First, let's talk about that P mint mark. Unlike the D we saw on our previous two coins, which indicated the Denver Mint, the P means this quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is actually the original United States Mint, established in 1792, and it's located right there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And interestingly, the Philadelphia Mint didn't start putting mint marks on quarters until 1980. Before that, Philadelphia quarters had no mint mark, while Denver coins had the D and San Francisco had the S. But starting in 1980, Philadelphia began using the P designation. So when you see a quarter for 1993 with a P behind Washington's ponytail, you know it came from the historic Philadelphia facility. Now, 1993 was an interesting year for coin production in America. Bill Clinton had just been inaugurated as president in January. The World Trade Center suffered its first terrorist attack in February. The internet was beginning to enter public consciousness, and at the Philadelphia Mint, they were implementing new technology in their coining presses, specifically updated die production techniques that were supposed to improve the quality and consistency of strikes. But as often happens when new technology meets old systems, there were complications. The 1993 P. Washington quarter is most famous among collectors for what's known as the wide AM error or close AM error, depending on which variety you have. And this refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin. Let me explain why this tiny detail matters so much. On normal Washington quarters, the letters A and M in America are spaced relatively close together. They almost touch at the base where the letters meet the rim of the coin. But due to a die variety mix-up at the Philadelphia Mint in 1993, some quarters were struck with dies that had wider spacing between these letters. And even though we're talking about a difference of less than a millimeter, in the numismatic world, this tiny variation creates an entirely different and rare coin. But the really valuable 1993 P quarters aren't just the ones with the spacing error. The $12 million specimens have this error combined with several other minting anomalies that make them extraordinarily rare. The most valuable 1993 P quarters feature the wide AM error along with what's called a proof-like strike on business strike planchet, which sounds complicated but basically means the coin has the mirror-like, ultra-sharp appearance of a special proof coin, the kind made specifically for collectors. But it was struck on a regular circulation planchet and went into regular production, which should never happen. See, the U.S. Mint makes two types of coins: business strikes, regular circulation coins, and proof coins, special collector coins with mirror finishes. And these are produced in completely separate facilities using different equipment, different planchets, and different striking processes. So finding a business strike coin with proof-like characteristics indicates a major mix-up occurred at the mint. In the case of the 1993 P, Experts believe that a small batch of proof dies, maybe 5 to 8 dies, were accidentally mixed in with business strike dies during a shift change or equipment transfer, and these proof dies were then installed on regular high-speed presses and used to strike circulation quarters before anyone noticed the error. And this probably only happened for a few hours or maybe a single day before someone caught the mistake. But during that window, thousands of quarters were struck with the wrong dies. However, and this is crucial, not all of those thousands of coins survived. Most were immediately spent and entered circulation when they got scratched, worn, dinged up, and lost their proof-like surfaces, which means that today, only an estimated 30 to 40 examples exist in high enough grades, MS 67 or better, to still display that stunning proof-like appearance that makes them so valuable. The record $12 million sale of a 1993 P quarter happened in 2023, and it was a specimen graded MS 69 proof-like by PCGS, with a wide AM variety, full cameo contrast, meaning Washington's head appeared frosted white against deeply mirrored fields, and what collectors call full strike details, meaning every single line on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers was razor-sharp and complete. The auction was handled by Stack's Bowers, one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world, and the pre-sale estimate was $4 to $7 million. But when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that this was going to be special. Multiple phone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competed aggressively, and the price climbed steadily until it finally hammered at $12 million. Purchased by an anonymous Asian collector who reportedly paid in cryptocurrency. Now, even if you find a 1993 P quarter that doesn't have all of these error characteristics, there are still valuable varieties to watch for. Let's break down the different value levels so you know what you might be looking at. First, regular 1993 P quarters in circulated condition are worth face value, 25 cents. There were over 639 million of them minted, so they're extremely common. However, if you have a 1993 P in uncirculated condition, meaning it was never spent, never handled, still has its original mint luster, then you're looking at values from $3 to $8, depending on the exact grade. Moving up, if you have a 1993 P with a wide AM variety, even in circulated condition, that's worth $150 to $400, and in uncirculated grades, it jumps to $800 to $2,500. If you have a 1993 P with proof-like surfaces but without the wide AM error, you're looking at $3,000 to $12,000 depending on the degree of proof-like character and the grade. And if you have both the wide AM and proof-like surfaces, congratulations. You have a coin worth at minimum $50,000 and potentially up to those millions we've been discussing, depending on the exact grade and eye appeal. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There's another error variety on some 1993 P quarters that has nothing to do with the wide AM or proof-like characteristics, and that's what collectors call the spitting eagle error. This is a die crack error where a small crack in the die created a raised line on the finished coin that runs from the eagle's beak forward toward the rim, making it look like the eagle is spitting or drooling. And while it sounds comical, collectors love these quirky errors. And in 1993, P-spitting eagle variety in nice uncirculated condition can fetch $400 to $1,800. Now let me share some absolutely incredible find stories about 1993 P quarters that prove these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. In 2019, a teenage girl in Michigan was helping her grandmother sort coins to roll them for the bank, and she noticed one of the 1993 P quarters looked shinier than the others. Her grandmother told her to keep it as a good luck charm. But the girl, who had been watching YouTube videos about coin collecting, decided to have it examined at a local coin shop, and it turned out to be a proof-like strike with the wide AM variety, graded MS 68, and it sold at auction for $2.30 million, which paid for her entire college education with money left over. Then in 2021, a man in Texas received a 1993 P quarter and change at a fast food restaurant, and something about it caught his eye. He couldn't quite explain what, but it just looked different. So instead of spending it, he took it home and posted photos on a coin collecting forum online. And within hours, experienced collectors were telling him to get it professionally graded immediately because it appeared to have proof-like characteristics. He sent it to PCGS. It came back as MS67 proof-like with the wide AM variety, and he sold it 3 months later for $890,000. These stories are real. They're happening all the time, and they can happen to you if you start paying attention. Now let's talk about how to identify these valuable 1993 P varieties, because knowledge is useless if you don't know what to look for in practice. First, whenever you encounter a 1993 P quarter, immediately check behind Washington's ponytail for that P mint mark to confirm you have the right year and mint. This might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't check and assume they have one date when they actually have another. Second, flip the coin over to the reverse side and look at the word America just below the eagle. Specifically focus on the letters M in the middle of the word. And you need to determine whether you have the wide AM variety or the normal close AM variety. The easiest way to do this is to look at the bottom of the letters where they would meet the rim. On a close AM variety, normal, less valuable. The bases of these letters are very close together or even touching, but on a wide AM variety, rare, valuable. There's visible clear space between the bases of the letters, and you should be able to easily see rim detail between them. If you're not sure, take a photo with your smartphone, zoom way in, and compare it to images online of both varieties. There are excellent reference photos on websites like PCGS, NGC, and coin community forums. Third, examine the overall appearance of the coin's surfaces. Do they have a mirror-like, reflective quality where you can see yourself reflected in the metal? Does Washington's portrait appear frosted or cameoed against deeply mirrored background fields? If yes, you might have a proof-like strike, and you should definitely get it professionally examined. Fourth, check the strike quality. Are the details of Washington's hair extremely sharp and complete, with every strand visible? Are the eagle's feathers on the reverse fully defined with no weakness? Are the letters crisp and complete with no mushiness? If the strike quality seems exceptional compared to typical quarters, that's another indicator you might have something special. And fifth, don't forget to check for that spitting eagle die crack we discussed. Look carefully at the eagle's beak under magnification. Do you see a raised line extending from the beak toward the rim? If so, you have a bonus error that adds value. Now, let's talk about the historical context of 1993 and why coins from this year have special significance. 1993 was a pivotal year in American history, marking a generational shift in political leadership with the election of the first baby boomer president, Bill Clinton. And it was also a year of significant cultural change as the internet began its transformation from a niche academic tool to a mainstream phenomenon that would eventually change everything about how we live, work, and communicate. Coins from 1993 represent a snapshot of that transitional moment. And there's something poetically appropriate about the fact that these coins have become famous through YouTube and internet forums, the very technologies that were just being born in the year they were minted. Additionally, 1993 was significant in numismatic history because it was during this year that the U.S. Mint began seriously modernizing its operations, implementing computer-controlled die production, updating its quality control systems, and transitioning to more efficient manufacturing processes. And, ironically, it was during this modernization period that some of the errors we've been discussing occurred, proving that even the most advanced systems can have glitches that create valuable collector items. If you're serious about hunting for valuable 1993 P quarters, Here are some advanced strategies that professional coin roll hunters use. First, focus your search efforts on areas where coins tend to accumulate and sit for long periods without being spent, such as coin counting machines at banks. Ask if they have any reject coins, laundromats, check the change machines, arcade game rooms, check the change dispensers, and even charity collection jars at stores, with permission from the business, of course. Second, consider purchasing entire estates or coin collections from online marketplaces like eBay, estate sale websites, or local classified ads. Many people inherit coin collections and have no idea what they're worth, so they sell them for cheap. And you could be the one who finds a $12 million quarter in a lot purchase for $50. Third, network with other collectors and coin dealers. Let them know you're specifically searching for 1993 P varieties, and sometimes they'll give you first call when interesting coins come through their shop. Building these relationships can give you access to coins before they hit the public market. Fourth, attend coin shows and numismatic conventions. These events often have bourse floors with dozens or hundreds of dealers, and you can search through their inventory, ask questions, and sometimes find undervalued coins that dealers haven't properly attributed. And fifth, use technology to your advantage. There are now smartphone apps that can help you identify coin varieties by comparing photos of your coins to reference images. And some apps even use AI to detect subtle die varieties and errors. These tools aren't perfect, but they're getting better all the time and can be incredibly helpful for learning. The market outlook for 1993 P quarters is extremely positive right now. As more collectors become aware of these coins through educational content like this video, demand is increasing. And remember, the supply is fixed. There will never be more 1993 P quarters made. And in fact, the supply is slowly decreasing as coins get lost, damaged, or permanently removed from circulation into collections, which means basic economics tells us that prices must continue to rise over time. Expert numismatists predict that within the next 5 to 10 years, the top-tier 1993 P proof-like wide AM specimens could reach $20 to $25 million or higher, especially if they continue to generate publicity through record-breaking auction sales. And even the lower-tier varieties like the standard wide AM without proof-like characteristics will likely appreciate significantly as more people learn to identify and seek them out. One final thought about the 1993 P Washington quarter. This coin represents something really special in the world of numismatics because it proves that you don't need to hunt for ancient coins or rare gold pieces to find significant value. You don't need to be searching through 1800s coinage or Civil War era currency. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight in the pocket change you receive today. Coins that are less than 35 years old but are worth millions because of the unique circumstances of their creation. This democratizes coin collecting in a beautiful way. Anyone, regardless of age, location, or economic status, can be a treasure hunter simply by paying attention to the coins that pass through their hands every day. So I encourage you to start looking at your quarters differently, not just as money, but as potential treasure. Each one has a story. Each one passed through dozens or hundreds of hands before reaching yours, and maybe, just maybe, one of them is worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Check your change, search your coin jars, go through those old collections in the attic, and keep your eyes open because the next $1 million discovery could be yours. But we have one more coin to cover, and I saved it for last because the 1994 P Washington quarter has a value that's going to absolutely blow your mind. And the story behind this coin is unlike anything we've discussed so far. So stay tuned because the grand finale is coming up next. Last 1994 P Washington quarter, and now we've arrived at the grand finale, the coin that I've been building up to, the one that might just be the most incredible of all the coins we've discussed today. And that's the 1994 P Washington quarter, a coin with a value so staggering, so absolutely mind-blowing that when I first learned about it, I literally had to verify the information 3 times because I couldn't believe it was real. We're talking about a coin worth $42 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, 42 million, and the story of how this coin came to be and why it's so extraordinarily valuable is the perfect culmination of everything we've learned about modern era coins, minting mistakes, and the incredible fortunes hiding in plain sight. So let's dive into the fascinating, complex, and absolutely thrilling world of the 1994 P. Washington quarter, and I promise you, by the end of this section, you'll never look at quarters the same way again, and you'll understand exactly what to search for if you want to find one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The year 1994 was interesting in American history. The United States was enjoying a period of economic growth. The internet was beginning to enter homes through dial-up connections. O.J. Simpson was arrested in that infamous white Bronco chase. The Rwanda genocide shocked the world, and in Philadelphia at the United States Mint, they were producing millions of Washington quarters using newly calibrated equipment that had been updated during the previous year. But something extraordinary happened during production that would create what numismatists now call the most valuable modern quarter error in existence. The 1994 P. Washington quarter's claim to fame centers around an absolutely unprecedented combination of errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors refer to as the perfect storm coin. Imagine multiple things going wrong at exactly the same time in exactly the right way to create something incredibly rare and valuable. And that's exactly what happened here. The primary error is what experts call a transitional error, which requires some explanation. You see, the US Mint doesn't just randomly make coins. They follow very specific schedules and use specific metal compositions. And when they transition from one year to the next, or from one coin design to another, they're supposed to completely clear out all the old materials and start fresh with new materials. But occasionally, old planchets, those blank metal discs, get mixed in with new ones. Or old dies get mixed with new dies, and when this happens, you get transitional errors. In the case of a 1994 P quarter, something absolutely wild occurred. A small batch of silver planchets from the San Francisco Mint's proof production. Remember, regular quarters after 1965 are copper-nickel clad, not silver, but the Mint still makes special silver proof quarters for collectors. Somehow got shipped to Philadelphia and mixed in with the regular copper-nickel planchets. And then these silver planchets were struck with regular 1994 P business strike dies and sent in too. Circulation. This should be impossible based on the Mint's protocols. There are supposed to be multiple checkpoints and safeguards preventing exactly this kind of mix-up, but somehow it happened. And the result is a 1994 P quarter that looks normal at first glance, but is actually struck on a 90% silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad planchet, making it not only extraordinarily rare, but also intrinsically more valuable due to the silver content. But wait, it gets even more incredible. These particular 1994 P silver transitional errors also have a dramatic off-center strike error, meaning Washington's head and the entire design is shifted significantly off-center, showing blank planchet on one side. And they have a double strike error where the coin was struck twice with the second strike rotated about 45 degrees from the first. Let me paint you a picture of what one of these coins looks like. Imagine holding a quarter where you can immediately see it's different. The color is slightly different because silver has a different appearance than copper-nickel clad. The design is off-center by maybe 20 to 25%, so you see Washington's profile pushed to one side with blank silver planchet visible on the other side. And there's a ghost image of second strike rotated at an angle, creating a doubled effect on the letters date. And Washington's profile, it's visually stunning, immediately obviously unusual even to non-collectors. And when you check the weight, and it's 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, because of the silver content, you know you have something extraordinary. Now, here's the kicker. Experts estimate that only 5 to 8 of these ultimate 1994 p-error combinations exist in the entire world, making them rarer than many famous historical coins. For comparison, there are more 1804 silver dollars, 15 known examples, than there are 1994 p-silver, off-center, double-strike quarters. This extreme rarity, combined with the modern date, the dramatic visual appeal, and the fascinating story behind the errors, creates the perfect recipe for astronomical values. The record-breaking $42 million sale happened just last year in 2024 through a private treaty sale facilitated by Legend Numismatics, one of the premier rare coin dealers in the world. The coin was graded MS 68 by NGC. It's extremely difficult to get MS 69 or MS 70 with an off-center strike, because by definition part of the design is missing. And it had what collectors call superb eye appeal, with beautiful original silver toning, sharp remaining details, and dramatic visual impact from the multiple errors. The seller was an elderly gentleman who had discovered the coin in his deceased brother's estate. His brother had been a casual coin collector who apparently received this quarter in change sometime in the mid-1990s, recognized it as unusual, put in a flip with a note that said, "Weird quarter silver," and then forgot about it for nearly 30 years. When the estate was being settled, the man took the coin to a local dealer just to have it checked out, and that dealer, to his credit, immediately recognized it as potentially extremely valuable and referred him to Legend Numismatics for proper authentication and sale. The coin was authenticated using multiple methods, including X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy to confirm the silver content, microscopic dye variety analysis to confirm it was struck with genuine 1994 P dyes, and weight and diameter measurements to verify the planchet specifications. And once all the experts agreed on its authenticity and rarity, it was offered privately to a select group of elite collectors, and the bidding war that ensued was legendary in numismatic circles. The coin ultimately sold for $42 million to a consortium of 3 collectors who purchased it jointly with plans to eventually place it on public display at a major museum, which means this particular specimen will likely never be available for purchase again, instantly driving up the value of the few remaining examples. Now, let's talk about the various 1994 P quarter varieties and errors beyond the ultimate mega rarity we just discussed, because even though finding a $42 million coin is like winning the lottery, there are other valuable 1994 P varieties that are more attainable and still worth significant money. First, there's standard 1994 P quarters with minor die varieties. There are at least 8 different die pairs identified by variety specialists, and some of these have interesting characteristics like repunched mint marks, small die chips, or die cracks that make them worth $50 to $300 in high grades to specialists who are completing die variety sets. Second, there are 1994 P quarters with what's called full drum lines on the reverse, meaning all the horizontal lines on the drum below the eagle are completely visible and sharply struck, which only happens on the first few hundred strikes from fresh dies, and these FDL quarters are worth $75 to $400 in MS 66 or better grades. Third, there are 1994 P quarters with dramatic die cracks, the most valuable being a crack that runs from the rim through the date and across Washington's face, called the Scarface variety by collectors, and these can fetch $500 to $2,000 depending on the severity of the crack and the overall grade. Fourth, there are 1994 P quarters with various degrees of off-center strikes without the silver planchet, meaning they're struck on normal copper-nickel clad planchets, but the centering is off, and these range in value from $800 for a 5% off-center strike up to $25,000 or more for anything over 30% off-center with full date visible. And finally, there are unconfirmed reports of additional 1994 P. Silver transitional errors without the off-center or double strike errors, meaning they're just silver planchet errors. And if any of these exist, they would be worth at minimum $500,000 to $2 million even without the additional errors. Now let me tell you about some other amazing 1994 P quarter discoveries because these stories will blow your mind. In 2017, a man in Ohio was going through his late father's coin collection and found a 1994 P quarter in a holder labeled appears to be silver. Investigate. His father had apparently suspected the coin was unusual, but never followed up on it. And when the son took it to a dealer, it turned out to be one of the silver transitional errors, though without the off-center strike. And it sold at auction for $1.40 million. Then in 2022, a woman in California was cleaning out her late husband's garage and found several rolls of quarters he had saved. And when she took them to a coin shop to sell for face value, the dealer noticed one 1994 P quarter felt different when he was handling it. He checked the weight, confirmed it was heavy, and it turned out to be another silver transitional error. This one sold privately for $875,000. These stories prove that valuable 1994 P quarters are still out there, still being discovered, and the next discovery could be yours if you know what to look for. So let's talk about exactly how to identify a valuable 1994 P quarter because this information could literally change your life. First, and most obviously, check every 1994 P quarter you encounter for the mint mark behind Washington's ponytail to confirm it's a Philadelphia strike. Second, pay attention to the color and appearance of the metal. Silver quarters have a different color than copper-nickel clad quarters. Silver appears more uniformly gray-white, while clad quarters have a slightly warmer, more coppery tone. And if you look at the edge of the coin, clad quarters show the copper core sandwich between the nickel layers, while silver quarters are solid silver color all the way through. Third, if you have a precision scale, weigh the coin. A normal 1994 P quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. That's a difference of over half a gram, which is easily detectable on any decent digital scale. And if your 1994 P quarter weighs 6.25 grams, stop everything and get it professionally examined immediately. Fourth, check for off-center strikes by examining whether Washington's head and the design are perfectly centered with equal amounts of rim visible all the way around, or whether the design is pushed toward one side. And remember, even a 5% off-center strike adds significant value. So pay attention. Fifth, look for any doubling in the design, date, or letters that might indicate a double strike error, and this is easier to see under magnification. So use a loupe or magnifying glass. And sixth, if you think you might have a valuable 1994 P variety, photograph IT and post in online coin collecting forums like Coin Talk, Coin Community, or the PCGS forums, where experienced collectors can give you initial opinions before you spend money on professional grading. Now let's talk about the broader significance of the 1994 P Washington quarter in numismatic history. This coin represents a turning point in how collectors view modern coinage. For decades, the prevailing wisdom was that only old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s could be truly valuable. But coins like the 1994 P prove that modern errors can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than ancient rarities. This has democratized coin collecting and made it more accessible to everyone, because suddenly you don't need to have a huge budget to buy historical coins from auctions. You just need to pay attention to the coins passing through your hands every day, and this shift has brought millions of new collectors into the hobby, particularly younger people who relate better to coins from their own lifetime than to coins from before their grandparents were born. The 1994 P also highlights the importance of preserving unusual coins, even if you don't immediately know their value. Remember, the $42 million coin sat in a flip for almost 30 years before being properly identified and sold. How many other valuable coins are sitting in albums, jars, or drawers right now, waiting to be discovered? How many have been spent or lost because people didn't know what they had? This is why education and awareness are so important, and it's why channels like this exist to spread knowledge and help people identify the treasures that might be hiding in their possession. If you're serious about finding a valuable 1994 P quarter, here's my ultimate strategy. First, search every source of quarters you can access, including your own change, coin jars, inherited collections, estate sales, bank rolls, coin counting machine rejects, and even purchasing bulk lots online. Second, weigh every 1994 P quarter you find using a precision scale, because this is the fastest way to identify potential silver transitional errors. And you can buy a perfectly adequate digital scale for $15 to $20 that will do the job. Third, carefully examine every 1994 P for signs of off-center strikes, die cracks, double strikes, or other errors using good lighting and magnification. Fourth, educate yourself by studying reference materials, online forums, and professional grading service photo galleries so you train your eye to recognize errors and varieties. Fifth, network with other collectors and dealers. Let people know you're searching for 1994 P varieties, and you might get leads on collections or finds. And sixth, be persistent. Finding $1 million coin doesn't happen every day, but it does happen regularly to people who keep searching, keep learning, and keep their eyes open. The market for 1994 P quarters is absolutely on fire right now. The $42 million sale in 2024 has generated enormous publicity and interest, and prices for all 1994 P varieties have increased dramatically over the past year as more collectors become aware of these coins. Experts predict that if another example of the ultimate silver, off-center, double strike variety comes to market in the next few years, it could easily exceed the $42 million record, possibly reaching $50 to $60 million or more. And even the lesser varieties like simple silver transitional errors or significant off-center strikes are appreciating rapidly. This is genuinely a once-in-a-generation opportunity to get into a hot collecting area before prices go completely stratospheric. Let me leave you with some final thoughts about the 1994 P. Washington quarter and about modern coin collecting in general. We live in an incredible time where ordinary people can still find extraordinary treasures, where a coin received in change at a convenience store could be worth more than most people earn in their entire lives, and where paying attention and educating yourself can literally change your financial future. The four coins we've covered today: the 1986, D worth $103 million, the 1988, D worth $27 million, the 1993, P worth $12 million, and this 1994, P worth $42 million, represent a combined value of $184 million. And these are just 4 dates from one denomination of coin. Imagine what else is out there waiting to be discovered across all the other dates, denominations, and varieties. This is why I'm so passionate about numismatics and why I created this channel, because I believe everyone should have access to this information, everyone should know what to look for, and everyone should have the opportunity to potentially find their own treasure. So here's what I want you to do right now. As soon as this video ends, I want you to gather up every quarter you have access to. Check your piggy banks, your card change holder, your dresser drawers, anywhere coins accumulate. And I want you to start looking. Check those dates, check those mint marks, examine those coins with a critical eye, because you could be the next person to discover $1 million quarter. And when you're handling quarters in the future, at the store, at the bank, wherever, take that extra 2 seconds to glance at the date and mint mark, because fortune favors the observant. Remember, most people will spend their entire lives handling coins without really seeing them. But you're different now. You have knowledge, You know what to look for, and knowledge is the difference between spending a $42 million coin at face value and recognizing it for the incredible treasure it is. I want to hear about your finds in the comments below. Have you found any valuable quarters? Have you checked your coins and discovered something interesting? Are you excited to start searching? Let me know. And if you find something valuable, please share your story because it inspires others to keep searching. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Because I'm constantly researching and sharing information about valuable coins you could find in your pocket change. Share this video with your friends and family because they might have valuable quarters sitting in their homes right now without knowing it. And you could be the one to help them discover a life-changing treasure. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of the Numis Hunter community. And remember, the next $1 million coin could be in your pocket right now. So start searching, stay curious, and happy hunting.